Oaxaca. Oaxaca is in the southwest region of Mexico, and it's known for its Mayan culture, and they eat a lot of grasshoppers, fried grasshoppers. When we first arrived, we got a hotel across from where the van brought us, and the hotel was like $10 or $15 a night. It wasn't that bad, and it had Wi-Fi. After walking around for about 2 or 3 days, just looking for room for rent signs or house for rent signs, and trying on Craigslist, we eventually found a pretty decent place. It was a split apartment, and it would only be like 2,000 pesos a month, which is like $150 a month for 2 people. The location was pretty great, and it was right near the Zocalo, which is the center of Oaxaca. There was a lot to see, beautiful buildings, all that. Okay, this is when the story gets real for me. It's now 4 years later or so, but back then, this is what actually happened. So while I was in Puerto Escondido, I developed a little bit of a heroin habit, and now that I'm in Oaxaca with no heroin, I'm about to get sick, and that isn't good. Next thing you know, I had an idea to get on a bus and just drive around Oaxaca looking for the ghetto. So that's what I did. I got on a bus, I was driving around Oaxaca, and until I saw like a big group of gangster looking guys. I pull the bus stop, I get off the bus, and I'm with this girl that I know, and she knows Spanish, so we walk by them once, and they're all looking at us, so we walk by them again, and next thing you know, one of them is getting heroin for us. And he comes back with like this little tiny bit, and they like all want to do it with us now. So now I'm like, what? That's just a tiny little bit, and we need to get it out of there. We end up getting out of there and kind of end up hanging out in the Zocalo a lot, which is like the Centro, and there's a lot of street kids and stuff like that around. We become friends with one of them named Jose, and he brings us on this long trek, like 2 hours, straight up a mountain to the top of like a Oaxacan mountain. And like he starts yelling at this window, which I guess is like the drug set. And a guy that comes down, and we find a new way to get it. So at this point, I'm hooked. You know, I'm doing it like every day. And I'm making this trip every day, walking up this mountain. And eventually, they tell us it's too hot, basically, up there for us to keep on coming. And they give me a phone number, and they say, you're going to meet this guy. And whenever I wanted it, they would just deliver it on a dirt bike. And every time he used to leave, he looked like the Terminator, this guy delivering these drugs. He had a leather jacket on, and whenever he would leave, he would say, "Andale," and do like a wheelie out of there. Now my drug of choice is easily accessible. I got a pad to crash at. I seem to have friends. It's like I'm restarting this whole new life in South America, but I'm already losing at it because I'm a junkie. My funds are pretty much rapidly dwindling, but at this point I'm not really too concerned about it. I think I had like $700 left and $100 a day habit, or like $60 a day habit. So needless to say, before you know it, I was completely broke in Mexico with no idea what to do. So at this point I'm staying with my friend Juanjalito and another friend, I forget her name, I think her name was like Claire, and then her friend, and then my friend, which I'll call her Ruby. Everybody had different tasks on how to get money. The girls kind of had their own thing going on with the internet that we were able to get. So I basically got us internet, and then I had a computer, and they had a computer, and I guess the girls would meet guys online and then Skype with them, and they would get money for that. So they got it how they got it, and no one really questions it or even questioned the ethics of it. We weren't out there robbing people or hurting people. I think one time I went out at night, and this was like one of the lowest points of my life, and I cut open a vendor's tarp, and took like a couple packs of cigarettes, because at the time I was smoking cigarettes. Days would pass, and eventually a few weeks would pass, and if you're doing drugs in Mexico, it's not going to be pretty. And at this point I'm broke and everything's falling apart. I have no money. I don't really know what to do. My family kind of already knows what's going on, so they're not going to send me any more money. So I go to the U.S. Embassy, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? I look like shit. I have been robbed, that's true. I was in the hospital, that was true. So I went to the U.S. Embassy and I told them what happened. I told them I had no money. And they looked at me and they said, "What do you think this is, the movies?" And basically told me to go away and try to call a relative or something for help. I didn't buy it at all. At this time, I had a little wisdom to me, so I ended up doing some research online and found out that, in fact, when you're an American citizen, and if something happens to you outside of your country, whether they think you can pay it back or not, you rate up to a $2,000 loan to help you get back and on your feet. So I went back, I showed her this documentation, and she kind of snarled. Very rude lady at the embassy. Obviously, because I'm a junkie, a traveler with no money in Mexico now. And it's probably pretty obvious. So she looked at me and she said, "True, but first you need to give me 5 names, and I need to call every single one of them, and they need to say that they're not going to help you first. That's the stipulation." So I put down these names, and I believe I told a few people, don't say yes, so I could get the money. But for some reason, number 5, I put this lady named Dr. Boyle. I lived with this lady when I was in like middle school and high school for a little bit. And of course she answered the phone and immediately bought me a ticket to New York City, which I felt very blessed about. And you'll find out a few stories from this story that I ended up paying her back with interest, but that's another story. So I'm just beyond thankful that I'm about to fly home to New York City, but I'm really scared too, because keep in mind, I've been in Mexico now for about 1 year, and you're only allowed to stay 6 months. And remember, I thought I had that trouble in America, so I didn't want to fly because maybe I thought I was going to get arrested. And it turned out it was just some petty crap that happened a long time ago with a construction company. We had like a disagreement, and it was something I shouldn't even been worried about, but I was. So before I even went to the embassy for months, I was trying to plan how to sneak back into America. And it was comical, at least. I talked to a few different people about a few different ideas. And one of them was I was literally going to go to Walmart and buy an inflatable alligator and try to get to the border and then float across the border under this alligator back into America. I mean, I was finding out prices, which I didn't have. It was like $3,000, and people would have brought me through the desert, and they were already showing me the carpeted shoes I had to wear and everything, but I didn't have that kind of money. Eventually I put a plea on like a nomadic traveling group, and some lady introduced me to another lady that had a number at the border, and she would have drove me across. All this craziness. But eventually I did some research, and I figured if I fly into New York City, I wouldn't have any problems. 50-50 anyway. I still don't have a passport at this time. It got stolen by Conman Mike a while back, and I had to wait a couple days for a passport. But even the bigger issue was my visa that I overstayed by 6 months. So I got some written letter of exactly what happened, and I had to bring it to the Mexican embassy, and they had to basically give me a new revised visa. On the day that I'm supposed to leave, I take my last dose of heroin, and I know I'm going to be sick by the time I get to New York, and I don't even know if I'm going to get past immigration. But I get there, I walk up to those scanners, I'm real nervous. I scan my passport. The guy asks me how my stay was, and I said it was great. And he says, "Welcome back." And it was like I was in shock, just like that. I'm now in New York City. It's hours later now, and I'm starting to get sick from withdrawal. So I have like 100-pound pack on my back, and I have $40 left over. That's all I had to get to where I was going in America. They bought the ticket. I had like $40. What does my dummy butt do? It goes outside. I'm like at some Grand Central Station or something, and I go up to the first druggy looking people, and I say, "Hey, I need to get some dope." And they say, "Oh yeah, man, look at this guy. He's one of us." All right. So I'm following around this big, lanky black guy and like this shorter, roughy kind of Mexican guy for hours, okay? And I'm getting really tired. I'm like, "Yo, what's going on? Where's this guy getting here? All this stuff." We finally go into like a hangout area where there's like a couple other people, and they turn around and say, "Listen, you're beat. You can either get beat up or you can walk away." So obviously I walked away, and I got beat for $20. So at this point, I'm super defeated. I'm achy. I'm withdrawing, and it's January, and it's snowing out. So I post a status on Facebook saying, "Do I have any people in New York City? I'm needing a place to stay for the night." My old buddy that I was in the Marine Corps with, he actually hits me up. He's like, "Man, I'm actually on hard times myself. I'm homeless myself, but I'm sleeping on this chick's floor. I can let you stay in my car for the night." So I'm like, "Great." I have $20 left. I spend it on a train ticket to like Queens, New York or something. And when I meet him, it's like 12 o'clock at night. I meet him at a bar. I'm still sick as a joke, and he knows. So we leave, and he brings me to the set and gets me 2 bags of drugs that actually break me out of my sickness. And then he lets me sleep in his car that night. After doing the drugs and not being sick, I was pretty comfortable that night. It was snowing outside, but I was in the car. I had my laptop. I was watching a movie. And the next day, he brings me to the set again, and then brings me to a bus station. And I take a bus from like Elizabeth, New Jersey. Actually, I took a train from there to Philadelphia, and then from Philadelphia to a little town in New Jersey that I'm from. Once I get to the little town, we're approaching 15 minutes here. That's as long as this story is going to be. It's 13 now. When I get to the town, I start staying at my grandmom's, and I get myself completely off drugs in like a week or two with Suboxone, and then I don't do that anymore. Then came the part of trying to get another job. And basically, my girlfriend was still in Mexico. I was now in New Jersey. I needed a job. So I was at my grandma's for like a month or two. I got completely off drugs, and I was waiting to go to work on cell phone towers. My buddy that I went to high school with, I worked with him on cell phone towers before I went to Mexico, and I wanted another job doing the same. And that is the next chapter of our story, and we'll call it Southern to the Core, Tower Climber Dogs. Eventually I leave New Jersey, and I get on the road working on cell phone towers. Next.